Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Soul Call with Kelly B. Today, I am joined by Robert James Comber. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you so much.
It's so wonderful to have you here. I am so excited to have this conversation today. Before we begin, I'm going to share Rob's bio. This is incomparable to any other bio that I've ever read, so I really hope that I read it as seamlessly and do it justice for you, Rob, because this is really going to blow you away. So, folks, if you're tuning into this and you've never heard of Rob before, you are definitely going to be very interested after you hear this conversation. So let me start by opening with this incredible bio. Robert James Comber is a cosmic architect of the mystical, a beacon of spiritual insight, warmly inviting all to embark on a transformative journey of self-discovery through his latest new discoveries in the ancient I Ching and astrology. A luminary in the realm of spirituality, he has a multifaceted background spanning esoteric studies, scientific inquiry, the advanced human chakra system, and artistic expression, emerging as a guiding force in the quest to unravel the mysteries of the universe and elevate collective consciousness. Upon his awakening at age 33 years of age, he is drawn to the mystical traditions of the East and the scientific wonders of the West, immersing himself in a wide array of disciplines, from ancient wisdom teachings to cutting-edge quantum theories. Robert's quest for understanding and direct experience of the divine led him to delve deep into the hidden realms of consciousness, where he discovered a rich tapestry of interconnectedness and divine intelligence. As he received upon the Lionsgate 88 in 2023, the Lost Octave, a hyperdimensional view of how music, ancient scriptures, and sacred geometry align with astrology to guide the way into the new Aquarian age. Dedicating himself to this mission, he has written a new book that stands as a testament to his profound understanding of the cosmic dance through his exploration of celestial patterns, sacred geometry, and the language of symbols. Robert's contributions extend far beyond the written word. As a gifted artist and creative innovator, he narrates his insights into captivating visual representations and the star-lore stories held within stars that speak to the soul and awakens the spirit. This discovery serves as a bridge between the seen and the unseen, inviting viewers to explore the depths of their own astrology and cosmic imprinting to connect with the universal heart. As we stand on the threshold of a new era of human evolution and the sixth root race, Comber's insights are more relevant and timely than ever before, weaving a grand synthesis together through the error correction codes of the 432 divine archetypes that aligns to the harmonic resonance of Mother Earth, experienced through the expansion of 64 hexagrams into the sacred number 72, the hyperdimensional field of collective awakening and embodiment of our own divinity. Alongside Robert Edward Grant, he discovered that the King's Chamber within the Great Pyramid of Egypt, there is an astrological alignment to the walls. This is directly connected to the Dendera stone and precession of the equinox. Since then, Robert James Comber has discovered new findings linking the star constellations to Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, Mona Lisa, and Last Supper, which all share their significance with the new Aquarian age through the blessing that is the Lost Octave. Wow! Rob, I have never quite experienced and read a bio like yours.
Oh, well, you read it so beautifully. It was like I was just sitting here receiving it like, oh, that sounds really great.
It really is. It really, really is. Now, we hopefully have about an hour together to explore, and I'm looking at the time right now. It's 12:12 on the 12th. And I know that you are really, really into numerology, as am I. So the significance of this for me is just so beautiful today because we're still within that Lionsgate portal, if you like, which peaked on the 8th of the 8th. And inadvertently, my little niece was born on the 8th of the 8th. So it's a very special date for us as a family too. This incredible transmission now, for those of you that are listening on audio, you won't be able to see this tome of a book that I'm about to hold up. For those that are watching on YouTube, you can see this incredible book, The Lost Octave. And it was the Lionsgate portal at its peak last year, as we've heard in your bio, that this incredible wisdom dropped into your awareness, Rob. I'd love if you could, just in your own words, just share with us what actually happened for you on that date and how this incredible journey began for you.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. And yeah, it's so great to show the book as well because most people are surprised when they receive it. They're like, "Whoa!" Like it's so thick and it's a real. I mean, really, it's I could have done that book in like 4 volumes, you know, and so but the way in which it is, it's like well, you can't sort of have one piece without the other. So it was like it's like the whole of the star law, so it's really everything that you need in one place, and that's why it's kind of this beautiful sort of astrological map, this book that just has all the ingredients that you need. So whether you're a beginner or whether you're advanced, it really doesn't matter. You can just get going. It builds up this journey, and then it takes you through the stories, and that's really the beauty of it. So yeah, last year it's really beautiful because it's been a 1 year, obviously, anniversary this year, and it's 888 that just happened, auspicious number, and so yeah, it was really just by sort of, I suppose, by chance in a sense, because I was working on other projects, and I'm a colorologist as well, so I study color and work with color, and that is a modality I've been building for the last, say, 2 or 3 years. And then literally on that Lionsgate day, it was just this intuition to look at this map of the I Ching. And so I hadn't really studied it much. I knew about parts, and it's kind of like a whole thing to go into. It's really involved. And as I looked at this map, which was presented with astrology, so this modality called human design has that was created where I Ching was connected to astrology. And I don't know whether that was done before human design or not, but that's the map that I was like, oh, I just felt called to look at it. And as I looked at this map, it was like I could just see that there was something missing. I don't know why. I had no idea. I didn't really sort of study. I didn't study human design. I just looked at this map. And then from there, it was just sort of fairly glaringly obvious that there was something that was more there. So that day was just, like this Lion Gate has just gone. The energies are so amazing, and I just started to draw out this sort of system, this process where I felt that there would be these missing sort of gates or missing aspects. So mathematically, kind of like, and intuitively, and I think that's the beauty of where we move in this Aquarian age. It can be very mental, like mathematical and scientific, and we kind of need the bedrock of that these days to sort of prove a theory, because obviously just pure intuition these days is there's so much information out there that anyone can say anything is anything. So it's kind of important now to have that intuition about what you experience, and then to try and find a way to narrate that into a comprehensive sort of either geometrically backed or mathematically backed plan, you know. And so obviously this is a 3,000 plus year old text, the I Ching. You know, it's been studied worldwide for thousands of years. So to have the intuition that there was something more in there is kind of quite revolutionary and quite bold to say.
Very.
You know, it's like, well, who are you to say that there's this, you know, but there was just this knowing. So I went through this process, and geometry is very much a part of my everyday practice. You know, I draw geometry all the time, and that has huge, profound understandings of pattern recognitions. So when I saw this map, I saw that there was a pattern that wasn't quite fitting how I felt it could. And as I was going through it, basically started to reveal itself. And very, very simply, in the first couple of pages of the book, I actually show you the very map that I drew, that I first discovered this. And then it ended up being that the fact that there's normally 64 hexagrams on the wheel, but of course, with time and clocks, there's not 64 seconds in a minute. There's only 60, right? And there's 60 minutes in an hour. So that's where it was like, well, this 64, I don't know, there was something. So I just plotted these 60 points, and it left me the 4. And of course, there's 12 astrological signs in the tropical zodiac. So these 4 were in the middle. And then when I added the 12, well, of course, there was 8 gates that were free or missing. And so as soon as I saw that, it was like octave because of 8. And I was like, oh, and I was like, it's the Lost Octave. So the whole book came in so quick like that. And so I was like, well, how can this be because of, you know, the binary code, all this sort of stuff? And it was like, it's not about this dimension. It's about moving it into the 4th dimension. And I was like, okay. And this is not like it's not like a voice. It's not like a channeled book. It's just the pure, your own consciousness exploring consciousness and revealing it. And it's through the heart, you know, and just seeing this. And so that energy, I mean, I was sort of like going about my day, but I was sort of, you know, over the day I was drawing this, trying to figure this out, just kept going back to it like an open eye meditation. And I was just in the field of it, in the transmission of it, you know, in the energy current, riding the waves, you know. And so when it was like that, I was like, wow, this is huge, because now this isn't just about matter. This is about moving into time and understanding that our astrology or our DNA is not just bound to this dimension. It runs through multiple dimensions. And of course, then that gives birth to this understanding that, you know, humanity are multidimensional beings. And so that's a really great revelation scientifically, to find out that, you know, we may have felt that inside, you know, that we're multidimensional beings and we've gone to different dimensions. But like I said, that's very much in interpretation of our experiences. To try and solidify that into like a mathematical, like, you know, tangible thing, and how to draw a new map with this involved. And of course, when I added in the 8 to the 64, it gave me 72. And that's really when the bells went off, because I knew that 72 is the highest number teaching in Jewish mysticism. So it's all linked to the Kabbalah and, you know, linked to the Hebrew language. And it's kind of like a bit of a secret code. So all of a sudden, I've got the ancient I Ching of China now matching the Hebrew sacred texts. Well, when you start linking 2 sacred languages together, you really start to feel that you've fallen upon this sense of oneness, this sense of wholeness. And so it sort of developed from there. And to be honest with you, like, the whole essence of the book is, even though I sort of discovered this aspect, I tried every which way to try and disprove what I'd found. Right? So, and that's really that was the journey. And that's really what that's how it evolved, because it was like, okay, you found this, but it's like, well, yeah, but what happens if it's not quite this, and it's not quite this, and not quite. But every time I tried to disprove it, it ended up proving it more with more concrete evidence in every field. And then after that sense of like, okay, it obviously is this, that's really when I got involved into the bringing back the ancient star law stories. And that's when I knew this was going to be a book, and I knew this was like a gift to humanity for them to really understand the stars and start to realize that the stars are not out there. You
Mhm.
know, that star law is you. You know, we are made of stardust. And so this gives you literally a map for your entire life and makes you understand what is the deeper essence of your whole life, what the purpose of it is, and how to navigate this realm with the stars.
Oh my goodness, this is just so incredible. I've watched many of your podcasts, Rob, and obviously I have your book and I've dipped in and I've read, bits and pieces of the book. But each time I hear it, it's like this living wisdom. I keep hearing another layer each time and keep coming back to my own life and my own lived experience. And I was going off in multiple directions there as you were speaking, and I'm thinking, I must ask this, I must ask that. But just bringing it back to even 3 years ago, when I was still working in education, I had not heard of the I Ching. I wasn't really, I had been meditating for a number of years, but I wasn't as, I suppose, aware of how incredibly mysterious we all are. And when I decided to take that leap of faith and leave my job behind, to leave that identity and to start showing up, and I suppose more of what I felt was an authentic expression of myself, then my reality started to change. And it seemed to be that there were just the right people coming into my life at the right time, all these beautiful synchronicities. And the business coach that I signed up to work with, beautiful, beautiful woman, introduced me to the Gene Keys, which is Richard Rudd's baby. So I hadn't heard of human design at that time, but I learned that there are very, very similar parallels because they're both based on the I Ching. So that was how I discovered the I Ching, which I haven't read, but I have an awareness of it. I have an awareness of the 64 hexagrams. And so for the last 3 years, my life has just been one incredible revelation after another. It's like this deepening within. And then my friend, very recently, Emily, has said to me, have you heard of Robert James Comber? He's writing a book and he's being interviewed on various podcasts about this book that's coming. And he's talking about this higher octave, this lost octave of what you talk about, Kelly, the 64 hexagrams, and you talk about the gene keys, and I think it's quite similar. And so I watched some of your podcast interviews and I thought, I must reach out to Robert. I'm going to be really, really brave and courageous. So I love how you're talking about, I tried to disprove what was coming through. I couldn't get away from it. And that's kind of like where I feel my life is going now as well. I'm getting braver. I'm getting more curious again, like what I was when I was a child. I'm asking questions. I'm wanting to deepen into the mysteries of what our souls are here to do. And so it's been such an incredible honor to hear you reflect on that activation that you received last year during that incredible portal that we are now revisiting this year, so potently so. And taken on something. I mean, it's almost like, how dare you, Rob? Like you see, Jig and say, actually, there's more to this. I love it. I absolutely love the bravery and the courage because courage, core, is the heart, isn't it? And you mentioned the heart there. And I feel I've got braver and I'm taking, braver steps to explore aspects of myself that I've maybe not wanted to look at in the past. And we're going to get into the star lore and the stories and the subconscious and all of that. I'm hoping today as well. But I love how you've had that bravery, as I say, to take this on and to take it out into the world to say, look, everybody, look how this all connects together. And I think for me, you've spoken about the multidimensionality of us as souls. We have been brought up in a matrix, this planet, with lots of programs about how everything is separate and separate disciplines. And what I love about your work is that you're seeing the interconnectedness with everything, that separation is the illusion that everything is connected. And so there's just so many things I want to reflect back to you, Rob, just with what you've shared there. But first and foremost, I want to say thank you for having the courage to step up and out and to, show up on other people's podcasts, to write this incredible book because it's such a gift. And what you also mentioned there was the importance of really, really trusting our intuition. And when you go into the flow and the deepening of what you know to be true, it's this deep internal knowing, then it's almost like the evidence shows up, the proof shows up. And I guess that's what I'm trying to reflect has happened in my life in such a short space of time these last 3 years. It's take the aligned action, trust your inner knowing, and then the evidence shows up. It just does. It just comes together. And so I love how you've reflected that back to me as well, because we doubt ourselves so, so much. And one example of this, when Emily said to me, check out Robert's work, she said he's talking about stuff that you've mentioned to us. So there's a few of us get together to do meditations, and some of the information that was dropping into my conscious awareness, I didn't really know what to do with it. So things like, the Star of Venus, I was hearing the Crown of Venus, I was hearing Tesseract, I was being shown this hyperdimensional cube that I had no idea what I was being shown. And then, of course, the evidence showed up. I'm watching you in podcasts and you're talking about this stuff, and it's like blowing my mind and my heart wide open. It's like, okay, so there must be something in this because this has been a pattern of my life. I get this inner knowing, I get feelings about things. I don't necessarily understand it, but then the evidence shows up. So I want to really thank you first and foremost for being that evidential person for me that can just really see things in multiple ways and bring it all together and explain it in such a beautiful, simple way that makes it understandable even for people like me, that is just kind of new to all of this. Going, what do I do with this information? What does it mean? So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, that is so great to hear your journey. And I think if there's one gift that I've had throughout my life is taking something that's seemingly quite complex and delivering it in a way that makes it so simple. I've been a coach for most of my life, in sports, and I was a sportsman myself. So that idea of coaching and understanding like complexities of a system, and when you're in team sports, it's a whole system that a whole organism that has to work together. Everybody needs their strengths to come forward, and how do you honor those, and how do you break everything down into a simple word? That so a whole line of actions can be triggered from one simple command. And so when I applied myself to spirituality, going into this, it was so beautiful because I'm like, wow, all of this complexity actually can be simplified, and I could teach the Lost Octave to children. I could teach them music, quantum physics, mathematics, geometry so easily, because really when you find what I call the golden threads are like these key patterns that are just everywhere in the universe. And so once you know this and you have this in your tool belt, then everything becomes transferable through those. But what I've found really beautiful with the Lost Octave is that, of course, when we're in this, like you said, a matrix of the third dimension, and we experience separation, that is how it's meant to be. It's like we're not meant to curse this experience. It's there as a fractal pattern. But our journey is to go into that and then to find out that it has access to the multidimensional self. And that's really where that's where the unity starts to be self-evident. And so when I went on this voyage into the Lost Octave, it's not intellectual that, you sort of, oh, this is that and that is that. It's not staccato like that. It's like once I found this, I was like, okay, I need to journey on my ship, and I need to go through this on a soul journey and see what is there. I need to explore it. And that's what I love to do, explore the unknown realms, and to, write what I've found, and to find like, oh, this is the journey. This is the map. This is how you get there. When you get to this part, this is shown to you. And so this is how it's like I'm able to navigate and guide people through the Lost Octave in a very particular way, because the way in which I've worded every single word in that book it's not just like written. It's like every single word is there to give you opportunities to explore yourself. Mm-hmm. So it's not saying this is finite, this is how it is, which is what the old traditions would say. And even the star law, the way in which it's described and written, is very much from it's a certain perspective. So not only did I want to honor what was written prior through all of our ancestors and history, but I wanted to write it in a narrative that works for us now, which gives us self-empowerment to say, it's not when you get to this goal that you're going to find the gold. It's to realize that you already have this gold, but the journey is there, allowing you to find it. So it's a completely different way of, you think about all stories and films, it's like the journey is, the adventure is, it goes through all the trials, and then you finally get to the end result. Well, that really puts us in a time-bound third dimensional realm. In the fourth dimension, the end goal is already inside you, right? Because it's non-linear. So it's like, well, if you know that all of the gold is here, but the only reason you're going on the adventure is to understand that and to discover that. So it's not about discovering something else somewhere else. It's about just unveiling what is already there. And that's the beauty of the Lost Octave. And it wasn't really till I did that journey that I had a remembrance of a past life, of where these teachings of the I Ching were only given as a verbal transmission. And so this is a really ancient way of doing things. And so when you're like an initiate, or when you're a student, especially with the sort of the Eastern traditions, you learn all these things, and you go up and you transcend certain things. And then when you're kind of like at the final point, that transference from the person you're studying from, the master, the guru, whoever it is, they normally reveal the final teaching that if you'd have known it at the beginning, then you'd have solved the whole thing at the very beginning. But that was the way in which it was done. Mm-hmm. And so this goes all the way back to Confucius time and Lao Tzu. And so the Lost Octave was never meant to be written down back then. It was only given as a verbal, because once you know the Lost Octave, you know the whole of astrology, you know the whole of the I Ching through 12 teachings. So that's why it's like what I call it the master gates, because if you learn the Lost Octave, then you've learned all of the other 72 gates just by learning 12. And so it's the shortcut. And so that's why when it came through, it was like, this is why it's meant for now. Because, we get to basically learn this 12 as the hub, and then you can take your time to explore each of the 72. Whereas before, it's like explore all of the 72 to then finally get to the heart of it. You see, so it's giving you the empowerment of know the end at the beginning. And that's the whole theme of the book. And that's what I call the law of octaves, which is, the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning. So it's a universal law, and you apply this everywhere. It's like once you reach the end, you realize that you're at a new beginning. Right? And also the fact that you have, at the very beginning, you have that end goal. Mm-hmm. So, if you want to transform yourself, you have a picture of who you want to be. The only reason you have that picture is because you already have it inside you. And that's why I say that the master is inside the student. already. You're
Yeah.
already a master. You just haven't done the journey to know that yet. And that's where it's such a, I call it the pole shift, or the pole shift of the divine feminine, because this is the mother that basically is encouraging the child to say, you have everything, you are so talented, everything you need inside you, but I need you to walk this journey. I'm going to be with you. You need to walk this journey yourself, and just start to reveal that you've got all of this inside you. And that's where it's a mother's touch, this book. It's a real paradigm shift for most people.
And that's one of the things that I love about it, because it's all connecting with the everything is connected from right down from the mitochondria all the way up. We're fractals within fractals within fractals, aren't we? And we think about mother and mater and matter. For me, it's about breaking through into a mother holding the child's hand. That's a beautiful analogy to lead us back into our truest divine essence of who we are. Also, the planetary body too. She has the song lines, the dragon lines, the mother lines. We have our meridians and our chakras, and we have the same as the planetary body, as I suppose is what's held in the cosmos as well. It's all interconnected. And so I love how you're describing this like the mother taking the child home, because it is that Sophianic wisdom that's returning, isn't it? It's the matriarchal, it's the mother, it's the bringing everything back into matter, into form, so that we begin to embody that beautiful, loving Sophianic wisdom, that frequency. But what's also coming through as I'm hearing you speak, Rob, is that, we have nature, obviously, that we are nature, and we live in, hopefully in some perfect symbiosis with harmony. And we have cycles of time and nature. But what I'm hearing and what I'm kind of getting a visual of as you're talking about this higher octave, the lost octave, is that it's not just circling round. We have an opportunity to take it higher, almost like spiraling up to this next octave, so that we're not stuck in a like a biofeedback loop that's just like a closed circuit. We're actually spiraling up and into a whole new octave of consciousness. And I think that's how my mind is trying to intellectualize, if you like, the experience. It's almost like we've been in the sort of, I don't know if the fatherhood is the right way to describe it, of what I'm trying to portray here. We're coming back to the mother. It's like a higher level of consciousness, with the mother within us leading that female wisdom within all of us, no matter what our gender is. It's coming back to the heart of the mother, the hearth, the coziness, the warmth, the nurture, the heart-based living, heart-led wisdom, everything from the heart. That's for me where I feel that we're going as individuals, as a collective consciousness, as a planetary body. Um, so I love everything that I'm hearing, because I'm just getting activated as you speak, and I'm getting new visuals and just um
Yeah,
yeah.
so I'll just speak to that because it's really easy to sort of visualize it really in a beautiful way when you think about tree roots.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah. So if you imagine the 72 hexagrams, are like all of the individual roots that have come off that tree.
mm-hmm,
And so we can choose any one of those gates, and we'll end up back at oneness at the main core of the tree.
mm-hmm,
So that's the path that we've been taking as a humanity, and in our personal lives is, okay, we follow a thread and we go through one gate, and then we go, we find the oneness.
mm-hmm.
Whereas from the feminine wisdom, you're speaking from the tree. So you're the tree itself,
Yeah.
seeing that all of your roots go in multiple layers into the fractal universe, but
Mm-hmm,
knowing that they're all connected from the one self.
mm-hmm,
So it's a place of, where do you position yourself? You position yourself as I'm journeying, I'm one of those routes, or I'm journeying one of those routes to get to oneness, or am I the tree of life itself that then expands into the fractal universe? And so it's so subtle, but when you align your whole life in this way, it is so profound because you're never going on the journey to find oneness. You're always the oneness going on a journey into the fractal. And so that's what I mean about it's a complete pole shift
Yeah.
in our speech, in our sense of searching, in our sense of, like, because you think, oh, if I'm already oneness, what's the point of the journey? Well, the point is that you can kind of, you may know this intellectually that you're the oneness, or you may even get a sense of a feeling that you're the oneness. But the whole point of the journey of our lives is to confirm this more and more, reveal this more and more, so that you realize that actually that oneness is also everythingness. It's also the fractals as well. And so, it's so beautiful because one is a way of I'm a fractal trying to experience oneness. One is I'm the oneness experiencing the fractal. And that is the absolute game changer of the maternal wisdom. And that's why when I was, seeing the Star Law stories and when I was writing the book, everything's flipped on its head. Everything's flipped upside down, so to speak. But actually, as we know with our vision, we see everything upside down, but actually our mind flips it the right way up. So actually, really the whole reality is the other way around.
Hmm.
And so when you start to realize this, it's like, okay, this makes so much sense. And so this sense of, even trust, you only need trust until the point when you absolutely know. And it's not a knowing of arrogance, it's a knowing of like, well, I know my direct experience. Nobody can take away from you what you've experienced, and so that authentically that that's your truth, that's where you are. It doesn't mean you're closed. It's like, well, I'm still open to experience more, but from where I can authentically say that is the truth of what I've experienced. And so that's where it no longer became about trusting intuition or having doubts. It, like I said, in the end, it obliterated all this sense of like trying to disprove it.
Yeah.
It was just like, wow, this is a journey that needs to be shared. And anybody who goes on this quest through it, you're going to experience all these archetypes and all of the signs and all of the whole matrix of astrology, not just in this dimension, but offering you an invitation into the multidimensional human,
Hmm.
which is what I said is the sixth root race, which is humanity's evolving into. And yeah, what a beautiful opportunity and what a timely opportunity for it to be written now.
Absolutely. And again, you're just giving me confirmation of some recent experiences that I've had where I've recently discovered something called inner dance, and I'm having Caroline Joshua on my podcast. We've recorded it, so it'll be coming out soon. And it's an incredible way. She creates soundscapes where it takes you really, really deep into the subconscious mind. And every cell in your body is listening to this music. And I could talk for a few hours about the experiences I had, but one of them was I became like this super being. It was like the divine mother. And I had on one in the many and many in the one. And it was like this beautiful oscillation of separateness but unity. And oh, just the beautiful visuals that I had were just so, so incredible. And just hearing you reflecting back, that has given me evidence. So I'm not making this up. It's just the fractals within the fractals and everything, experiencing everything. I don't know if you know
Mhm.
this as well, Rob, but I was a primary school teacher. So when you were talking about, um, I could teach this to children. Um, One of my gene keys is simplicity. So, being a primary school teacher, I now understand my journey was to make things simple for children and to be with children and the wonderment and the curiosity that they hold. And so, for 22 years in my adult life, I'm working as a primary school teacher and have read many children's books, as you can imagine, over time. And so, it was absolutely fascinating to me when you steered me and guided me towards looking at my own gates and then discovering that one of my favorite children's stories was actually an archetype and a theme in my life. So my one of my gates is lupus, which I've obviously heard that word lupus before, but then the story of Little Red Riding Hood. And so, what I would love for us to do is to delve into now and weave the conversation into how people can use the Lost Octave to explore more deeply their inner truths. So, I work as a soul purpose coach, is what I call myself. And I grew up in a mining, an ex-mining village, and I talk about soul mining and the gold that we hold, finding the gold that we hold because we already have it. And you reaffirmed that as well. So reading my story, that theme of my life, and then revealing like, oh my goodness, this is what I've been encoded with since birth. And I've come in with this encodement. So I would love for you to share more deeply about how these incredible stories and these archetypes can help support us with our own healing journeys, our own revelations, and why it's important at this time.
Yeah, no, so great. And yeah, it's the beauty of the stories is it's like once you watch a film, then that film has a profound effect on you, whether it's subconsciously or consciously. You know, either it inspires you or it makes you aware of something, or you know. And I mean, I love films and art and all of those kind of things, and they're such great visual ways for us to learn. And so, you know, some of the older films like Pinocchio and things like that, they're so cleverly crafted with archetypes. And so every story that's ever been told is written in the stars. The whole entire Bible was written in the stars. Every nursery rhyme, you know, everything that we've written down, you know, I can find it all there because these are the collective consciousness archetypes.
Mhm.
And so with Little Red Riding Hood, with you, for example, so lupus is one of the deacons. So there's 36 deacons in the wheel, and they're kind of the original origin of those, as far as we can find, is from the Dendera stone in Egypt.
Mm.
And so, you know, a lot of people say, well, the Dendera stone was a Greco-Roman, you know, they added it into the Hathor temple and everything else. But it really doesn't matter because the stories are still preserved. So whether, you know, and these stories aren't just for that time, they are universal stories. It's not like, oh, somebody just made it up. These are found in the stars. And so, you know, this is where, like I said, we can find the Bible, and however old we want to say that is, it's all there. So like a film or like anything that you watch or anything that you experience, you know, you were saying about the soundscapes, the way of the feminine is not so much about, okay, now I've got this knowledge, how do I apply it? Right? That's patriarchal. That's a masculine way to look at something. I learn something like I don't learn it at school, and then, okay, how do I apply this into my life? It's not like that. And so many people have said, like, okay, but how do you embody this? How do you work with this? It's like, well, when you hear something inspiring, what do? You get out the pen and paper, or you start to do something spontaneously.
Mhm.
That's the way of the mother. She like when we read children's books before, you know, before children go to sleep, what you do is you create the environment and the landscape, the dreamscape. And what you do is you open all the doors and then you let them drift in, and then they drift into their dream. And so that's really like the shamanic way of like holding the space of creating the environment, the set and the setting, so that you create this trajectory which aligns that person to go in a certain direction. And then from there, either they have the dream or they have the revelation or they have that epiphany. And so that's how Star Law works. You know, these were stories that we spoke about looking up at the stars when that was our film, that was our movie. You know, when we're sitting there looking up at the stars and we're saying, wow, look at Saturn and battling Jupiter. And, you know, this is how it was done to give us the moral understandings of how to align ourselves as to, if you do this, And in the star story, this is what happened. It didn't turn out very well. So then when it comes to your life, you're like, what I'm experiencing now reminds me of that story in the stars. So you know which choice is going to end up in which direction. And you're
Mm-hmm.
also going to know, that choice can lead to suffering, but actually through that suffering, like you may lose something, but in a way, actually, you realize that you're going to gain a lot more. And so it's kind of like we understand a sense of sacrifice, a sense of giving up, or a sense of why are we going through this tough time? Because the stars are all there to show us our journeys. And so with Little Red Riding Hood, which is it's so amazing how and why these stories have lasted over time. I mean, Little Red Riding Hood was, thousands of years old, essentially, like the Santa Claus story, thousands of years old, but when you trace back the origins of these stories and why they've lasted and why we still share them, it's because they're archetypal truths of our lives. So for you, for example, so you're actually born sort of towards the end of lupus, going actually towards the crown, and we'll get to that bit in a second. But if I could basically show you a film of your life, of your archetypal life ahead of you at the very beginning of your life, then you would understand why and how and what you need to do when these situations arise,
Mm-hmm.
and how to deal with that, rather than, life is happening to me and I get shocked, like, oh, I've never experienced somebody betraying me, or, somebody pretending to be something, like the wolf in sheep's clothing, pretending to be something, and then it turns out they're not. They're actually like, wow, they could be quite actually insidious, quite evil, like underneath their intention. But I thought they were, I mean, like, if that is what your life path is showing you, what the stars are showing, say, like, when somebody comes into your life and they are a certain way that clicks and rings all your bells and says, like, wow, this person can be trusted, it's like, this is where you have to really listen for the signs, because what does the wolf say? So the wolf eats the grandmother, first of all. So the loving grandmother, the pillar of life, right? So she's the one who's holding it all together. So the wolf eats her first, because he can't eat the child, because the grandmother would know, she would see through the sheep's clothing, right, into the wolf. So he has to take out the grandmother first. Now the child is there who's naive, right? So this is where we can feel like we're in the world where we're naive. We don't really know what's what, who's who. And so we're vulnerable at that stage. So this is showing you, so that whole time that you've been, say, separated from your parents guiding, you were perhaps left in a situation where I'm like, wow, I feel very vulnerable. I don't know who to trust. I take everybody at their face value. And so we learn the good and the bad of that. It's great to be open-hearted, but then also the world can be quite difficult in times.
Mm-hmm.
So what the wolf says to Little Red Riding Hood, he says, that they're sort of there, and he's sort of pretending to be the grandmother. And so she says, well, like, what great big teeth you have, grandmother. And then the grandmother says, or the wolf says, all the better to eat you with. Right? But then the questions still come from Little Red Riding Hood. Oh, my big hands you have, all the better for eating you with, or clawing you with. And so, like, that reply didn't change Little Red Riding Hood's understanding at all. So the signs are there, So this is showing you that you've really got to listen to what people say and how they say it. And, because if you can catch on to that, then you're not going to be eaten by the wolf. So that's a huge life lesson that is in your thread. And so the idea of the wolf eating Little Red Riding Hood.
Mm-hmm.
So Little Red Riding Hood why does she wear a red hood? Well, in the original story, it was like a red hat. And whenever anybody wears like a red hat or a red cloak, red was the ancient color of the sun. And so when the wolf eats the sun, that's the autumn equinox, Libra, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is what it's showing you. It's saying as the sun is descending in the sky in that year, in the autumn, the fall, as it goes down on that equatorial line, the sun goes underneath that equatorial line. And so then basically the sun gets eaten or swallowed by at Libra, at the point of Libra.
Mhm.
So this is a natural part of what happens. And so this sense of, okay, if I don't see the signs and I end up getting swallowed by the wolf, then what happens? And so again, it's like, well, if you've been swallowed in your life, like you've been swallowed by a difficult situation and you enter blackness, you enter darkness. And of course, Saturn exalts in Libra, which means that Saturn's favorite place, other than its own sign, is in Libra. Well, of course, Saturn is, in a way, is Father Time, but it's kind of like the endings, right? So it's time, and it's kind of like the death. So it's the death of the sun at the autumn equinox is going underneath into the underworld. And then when you're in that blackness, when you're in that soup of what do I do, that despair, oh my God, I've been betrayed, I've been, fooled, and now look at me where I am. Most people stay in that victim
Conscious.
mentality,
Mhm.
right? And so now you've entered the subconscious of
Mhm.
your own subconscious. So the wolf is really your own subconscious.
Mhm.
So in a way, you could say that you wouldn't get swallowed if your subconscious was in agreement with you, right? If your subconscious is in agreement with your life, you won't experience that sense of darkness. But when the subconscious and your conscious life are not in balance, right? The Libra balance, then you need to go into the cycle. You need to go down into the roots of the core of the trauma or whatever's there that needs to be seen, heard, and all these things, so you can understand it. And then what happens is that when we go down into December, well, of course, the Christ story happens.
Yeah.
So the child is born, which is the Son, right? So the Son of Mary is the Son, as in S-U-N. And
Mhm.
so what happens is that the Son is born again. So that after you've been eaten at the autumn equinox, you go into that period of darkness, and there is a sense of when you get born again. Now, what happens in that story of a Little Red Riding Hood is that the Hercules archetype, so the divine masculine, so your inner divine masculine comes in to basically kill the wolf and open the belly of the wolf and pulls you out whole, you and the grandmother. So hold on a minute. Actually, you didn't die how you thought you died. You weren't fully consumed. You were just held in a space of darkness for a while until you call upon your own inner masculine to make the next move to help you through that, darkness. And of course, these poles could be flipped. So it could be calling upon your inner feminine to help you out, to pull you out. And so it doesn't matter which way. All it's trying to show you is that you will be born again. You will actually come out whole. You were never actually eaten, like chewed up. You were just like stayed in a dark space for a while, so that you could really understand how to call upon your inner powers to liberate you and give birth to your new self again at the winter solstice. So from that story, you would understand what is going to happen in your life. You're going to understand what's going to happen every single year. And everybody does this, by the way. So everybody goes through every sign. So everybody goes through this at the same time. And that's why it's a personal story, but then it's a fractal into the collective story.
Yeah. That's just so incredible and it's so deep. It's these stories are so powerful. And like you say, they're connected. This is the star lore that have been written into children's fairy tales, but with so much truth and metaphor and symbology in them. And so I love how you're taking it right down to these simple stories so that we can each understand how to heal ourselves in order to heal humanity. If
Yep.
we all if we all connect with our own stories. And what I love so much about this job is I completely relate first and foremost to where that's played out in my life and where I've been consumed by depressive episodes in my life where I have been in victim consciousness, where I have pointed the finger of blame and, felt very vulnerable. But I would like to think that over the years, I continue to evolve and grow as a soul. And this is what's led me to do the work that I do now, which is to facilitate healing for others. I don't heal other people. I hold the energy and help people to heal themselves. And what you're describing is a much deeper, more powerful way to allow people to connect to their stories because, like you said, films, movies, stories, they bring emotions in, don't they? So it's the magnetism of the emotions, again, the mother energy of what makes us feel. It's what makes us human, isn't it? It's beyond the electrical thoughts and going into the deeper recesses of the emotions, what makes things stick, the stories, the music, the movies. And so it gives people like myself a deeper insight into, oh, I understand that. So I'm almost being the observer to myself, like what you said. So in this story, I can see how I'm playing out in this story and that I'm all of this. So I
Yeah,
love this. It's just like blowing my mind.
I was just going to say with that, it's so beautiful that you said that because when you realize that you are the grandmother, the
Mhm.
child, and the
The
wolf,
will.
right?
Yeah.
So, and then the Hercules that
Yeah.
saves them both,
Yeah.
right? And so again, it doesn't matter how you narrate it. It could be Athena that comes in, that's opposite Aries. It could be
Yeah.
Athena that comes in and kills the wolf. Or maybe the wolf doesn't get killed at all.
Hmm.
Maybe that you befriend the wolf, you start to understand why the wolf did what it did.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the wolf releases the grandmother and the child.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
it's like the star law is not there as a concrete thing, and that's our life, right? It all depends on our narration of the story and how we move through it. Like I said, maybe the grandmother at the very beginning of the story, the grandmother has a conversation with the wolf and understands the wolf, and the wolf feels understood, and then the wolf goes on its way, right?
I love this. This is
So,
exactly what I used to do with children in school. I
yeah,
used to rewrite the stories because rather than seeing other people as the baddies, if you like, it's like, let's bring everything home to love. Let's rewrite the story. We get to create new pictures of reality with our imagination. We can imagine in new pictures and we can rewrite this for ourselves and for each other all from a place of compassion and understanding. And I guess this is what the higher octave of love is. This lost octave is coming back to the mother to bring into matter that embodiment of love, that divine wisdom, the heart wisdom. I so
yeah.
love this. It's so incredible.
That's why I say, like, when I was narrating the or reading the original Star Law, how it's been presented, it was so easy to see that it was written in a certain way, for those times,
Mhm.
because really humanity kind of needed more of a sledgehammer of awakening to say, like, you get eaten by the wolf because it's it's your
Mhm.
subconscious, or it's they didn't even say subconscious. They'd be like, oh, it's another being or another person that can take away your light, right? That's you think about how disempowering that story is in those
Yeah,
terms.
yeah.
So the beauty of the Lost Octave in my journey was that it's not just taking the star law and then just going, oh, here are the stories back to us. No, no, it's like once I went through that,
Mhm.
I then rewrote the story in a way that showed you the ancient way, but
Mhm.
then also showed you how that narrative is now pole shift with the mother energy,
Mhm.
that it now offers you these great opportunities to, you're like, wow, I'm the wolf. Like, yeah, but I don't, why would I consume my own light? It's like, no, because there's disharmony within the subconscious. And
Mhm.
so every time that you experience that sense of like, I feel like I'm being eaten, or I'm in this darkness and I don't know where to go, you've put yourself in there for a reason. But the great thing to know about it is that you will be, the light will come. So it's just a case of trying to understand why I'm here, why I've done this. And then once you find that out, then the light appears again. And then you're completely transformed into a whole new cycle of your wheel. And so the octave, or the lost octave, it's in the fourth dimension. How it works is that what is inside becomes outside, and what is outside becomes inside. So what was above becomes below, and what's below becomes above, and they forever interchange, and they're the toroidal field. And so we end up this, the expansion, the contraction, the breathing. And so this is really how the fourth dimension works, because we move forward with our future of how we're going to our next steps, but we also consult the past. So we're like, well, I learned from that, so I can make the new decision. So we're forever going from the past and the future because this toroidal field is happening. Now, what happens is that most people get drawn to placing themselves either in the future or either in the past.
Yeah.
And that's where you become sort of encapsulated within the third dimension, because you feel like, well, it's me either in the future or the past. We have a duality of it. In the fourth dimension, you're in all of them, but actually you're seeing that from the central point of the torus field. So you can be simultaneously seeing that the past and the future, how they work, and then you make that choice in the present. And so this is why knowing your hyperdimensionality, it makes it so abundantly clear of your wholeness and of the collective togetherness. There cannot be a separation. That past and future, they're not separate things. They are so interwoven through this every now choice and moment. And that's why I say that now that even some of the people that are listening to this, even if you don't have Libra in your chart, this star law story is still inside you as an archetype. So just by knowing this would inspire you and help you to make different choices. And you'll be like, I see the wolf, I see the child, I see my grandmother self. How do I work this situation so I can still learn the lessons of the situation, but I don't have to necessarily go through the suffering in order to learn it?
I love this. It's almost like taking Carol Jung's archetypes and just like going much, much deeper with it all. And it's like a quantum healing technology. Just as we're sitting here right now, we can think into the past, we can project into the future. So we're still sitting stationary here, but we're going into multiple times, like you say. So we're working in the realm of quantum time. And this is what I love about what you had discovered about, we hear a lot of people talking about their Merkaba to travel in their Merkaba field, but you're talking about the star of Venus as this hypercube. And this was what I had been shown, which again, you confirmed for me that I wasn't going crazy, was this blue diamond tesseract I was being shown. And I was hearing hypercube. And it was during meditations, I was going into it was like a sapphire cave I was seeing myself in with a beautiful fire like the hearth. And then I was stepping out into this blue diamond tesseract, and it was like a time machine. It was like I was going to any point in time to where I needed to do some work. But ultimately, that work was within myself. Because what you're also talking about is no longer looking outside of yourself like there's something wrong with people out here. It's also not saying that there's anything wrong within us. It's just, what can we revisit and connect with and understand more deeply, so we bring it all home to love. So I would love if you could just to talk about, because you explained this so beautifully, the hypercube and the fourth dimension, and how this space-time continuum that we're on, it's not limited anymore. We can go to any point in time, we can heal any point in time, we can more deeply understand any point in time. and how powerful that is for this now moment, for us to know more about this.
Yeah, no, so beautiful. And the best way I would say is, the book is obviously when it came about the octave, it's about music.
Mhm.
So some of the most beautiful ways we understand all of this is through sound and the mathematical principles that are behind sound. And so the reason why I say that you can learn music in, I think there's like 2 pages in the book, right? So you can learn music in 2 pages. Well, you think, well, how is that possible? Because when you learn one octave, you learn every octave.
Yeah.
So all you have to really do is learn one octave. So there's 8 keys in an octave. So really there's 7 notes, and then the eighth note is the end of the octave, but the beginning of the next.
Mhm.
So music doesn't end. It's continuous. There's no finish and there's no beginning. It's always sounding, like the eternal on. And so, within that eight, within that seven, there's 7 white keys, and then you
Mhm.
have the 5 black keys, right?
Mhm.
So the half steps. So of course that's 12. But that's interesting. So seven are a sacred number 7. Then you have the 12, which is sacred number 12. Well, then that actually codes into 8 and 13. So 8 and 13 are like the feminine, you could say. 7 and 12 are like the masculine. And so a lot of our texts have been about 7s and 12s. But in order for those 7s and 12s to actually fully complete themselves, to go into the next octave, it's about 8 and 13. 13 being the divine feminine number. And so this is why it's so important that if you learn just one octave, you learn every octave in every dimension. So the same when it comes to hypercubes. Once you learn one cube fully, then you're like, oh, okay, then it's just a fractal of this, and the fourth dimension is then a cube inside a cube. So, like I say, this is a bit like saying, like, if your physical form is a cube, your heart is a cube inside that cube, or it's a mini torus inside the big torus. But the funny thing is, like I said, is that mini torus becomes the outer torus, and the outer torus becomes the mini one. So they're forever exchanging places, and that's why I say that we're simultaneously going through the procession of the equinox, meaning that we go through all the signs of a solar year in
Mhm.
that order. But then we're also simultaneously on a bigger scale going through the precession of the equinox, which is where we move backwards through the signs, right? So that's like the planetary view. So our Earth view is moving forwards and our cosmic view is moving backwards. But the funny thing is that it's one spiral
Mhm.
seen from 2 different ends. And this is a really fun thing that people can do, is that if you take your finger and you look down at it and you make a circle clockwise or counterclockwise, and then you bring it above your head, you're still moving in the same direction. It will be say counterclockwise beneath you and clockwise above you. You haven't changed direction,
Yeah.
right? You've just changed your view.
Mhm.
So this is why I say when we just learn from an Earth point of view, looking up at the cosmos, we're only seeing it from one direction. You know, when you're seeing it from the cosmic mother view, she sees it in the other way. And so this is where we end up with that, the Mars and Venus, the masculine, the feminine views. We look at the same thing and we have completely different ideas about it, like literally counter opposites.
Mhm.
Like, well, how, that's the beauty of it, because we're meant to work and see both views working together, that both are applicable. And if you can work with both, like both hemispheres of the brain,
Mhm.
if you, rather than either or, it's both and.
Mhm.
And so when you can work with that and be like, okay, I can't move forward in my life in this linear way that I've been doing it, let me try it from the other view.
Mhm.
And that's often what we find in other people, right? Like, so we go, I'm having this issue with this. And then that other person sees it totally different and gives you the inspiration to go, oh, I never saw it that way. Well, instead of it being external to you like that, this star law stories and this, what I'm offering in the book and the octaves and the hypercubes, is saying, well, if you can't understand it from the third dimension, go to the next dimension. And then if you can't understand it from there, go to the next one.
Yeah.
Because at some point, you're going to see the whole picture and be like, oh, it was so simple. I just have to go there. Or why did I even think that was an issue? It's so magical. And that's why I say once you learn one, you'll go through there. All the rest of them are just the same, just fractals. And so, yeah, we just have to learn a certain amount of patterns,
Mhm.
and then they're keys to open all the rest of the doors.
It's just incredible. The way you explain it, it's just so beautiful. And the way that you have beautifully articulated it all in the book is such simple language to understand, which I greatly appreciate, because we try and intellectualize everything, don't we? We think about all these complex things, but actually reducing it down to what you've just said, how simple it is. If you don't understand it, become almost like take a step back, be the observer, and be the observer of the observer. You can go out and out and out, or up and up and up, however you want to perceive it. It's like having that um I suppose, holistic view of all of this, and then you can do the deep dives and get into all the intricacies of it all. I have,
That's I was just going to say, just that last point is so funny you said that last word, because in the book I speak about that the hyperdimensions are more intricate but less complex,
I love that.
right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
when you even look at the geometries of the next dimensions, it can look at first like, wow, there's all these extra lines. And so it has this intricacy, this pattern. But actually, when you really understand it, it's much less complex than you think it is. And that's the beauty of the higher dimensions. And so it's so funny that you said it intricate, because that is a quote in the book, because it can feel daunting. All of this, all of these start, where do I start? All these maps, all this stuff. Understand and learn one octave, and
Mhm,
then all the rest of the music is going to be the same. It's the same patterns. And that's why I say when you understand your style or story,
mhm,
every pattern that comes in all of its different guises in your life, you'll be like, I see the thread of this throughout everything I'm doing. And I know this is meant to happen. That's another thing I would just add, is that, when you know that you're meant to be swallowed by the wolf, that's part of your initiation process. That's part of your what you chose in your life journey for that space-time continuum. That's why you were born then.
mhm,
Because you were like, I want to experience what it's like to completely lose myself. What is it like to be completely cut off from all of the senses and just be kind of stuck in a void, being like, well, where do I go? That's what it's like being eaten by the wolf. You're
mhm,
just in the belly of darkness.
mhm,
But then you're like, well, if I'm in the belly of darkness, this is the return to the mother womb.
mhm. Yeah.
Now, that's the epiphany that you have when you're there, when you're not trying to fight. Why is this happening to me? Why was I eaten? Why am I in this darkness? You're there in the presence, and you're saying, well, if I'm in the belly of the wolf of the darkness, I must be back returning to the mother womb, where I get to just, I'm not a form. I just, for one moment in my life, I've been blessed to not be a form. And I'm this formless consciousness of the mother. I merge with the mother. And it's like, okay, how do I want to rebirth myself with the cosmic mother from what I've just learned? That is a completely different way of narrating your life than thinking about what's just been in the past and thinking, why me? Be in the presence, realize where you are, what your star story is, and then it's for you to change that narrative. And that's when you transcend that lesson and
Mhm.
you move into a completely new octave of life.
I love that reflection too, because it's bringing up now how so many of us have operated from a place of fear. And so, talking about the darkness, as a child, I really feared the dark. And that's been part of my initiation. and
Yeah.
not to fear the dark. And a few years ago, I started to hear cosmic womb, and it was coming into my conscious awareness. And again, didn't really understand what that meant. And so I surrendered into trusting that, and I asked to be shown. And I was taken back to that void. I was taken back to the nothingness of not being formed, and the safety and the wonderment of just being, and actually felt so nourishing. And when we think about even the soil and the earth, before we even plant something, all the nutrients are there,
Mhm.
everything that that soil needs to grow a beautiful seed. It was like all of this awareness then started to make sense. I'm like, I think I get this now. There was nothing to fear anyway, but I had to go into that space to know that the fear was just illusionary. It was just the mental mind had made this mental construct that made me think it was fearful. And so there is so much power in what you're sharing here. And it's to self-empower us, Rob. It's given us pathways into ourself to become all the more aware of how magnificent and mysterious we are, to break through into higher levels of conscious awareness so that then we can be filled to the brim with love and power so that we can start to really elevate the frequency we hold, the frequency on the planet, and stabilize that higher octave of love on the planet so that we're creating this beautiful crystalline grid on the planet of love and harmony. And it's bringing us back to this awareness that we've had times on this planet like Lemuria, where it was more pure and it was more heart-based and it was crystalline, but of course, these fell. And so, what do we learn from those times? What do we learn? It's all in here, isn't it? It's like we're revealing more and more and more of it so that we can help ourselves spiral up and out to these higher levels of awareness all the time. It's
Yeah.
just everything, every word that you speak, every word that I've read, there's just so much that's activating within me. And I'm just so grateful that you've come on today to speak into this. And I know that we've not touched on so many areas that I would love to speak about, and I would love to have you back again sometime. But you mentioned to me before we press record that there are so many love stories written in here as well. I would love to finish on that because for me, that's what my deepest mission is here in life, is to lead with that legacy, leave a legacy of love. You know, we want to be loving every breath and, you know, live with love in our hearts and elevate that. And so with love, there is grief, there is pain, there is discomfort, there's uneasiness. It's not, there's anger, there's righteous anger, you know, with love. There's very powerful stories connected with love. And I would love for you just to finish with some reflections on why these beautiful stories are so, so important. These love stories are so important, especially for now.
Yeah, no, so great, and yeah, there's so many things to that we could explore in this. But it's funny that you say elevate because in the book I developed a psychology
Mm.
and that you can go through, and one of the words in Libra is elevate. So that's the integration word. So that's that sense of where how do we elevate what we are experiencing into a higher understanding, and how do we lift things into a different perspective. So it's funny that you say that because that is actually one of the Libran words. That's the gift that you get to learn that you intrinsically have, is that it's like, well, I experienced this, but how do I move this into a higher or deeper level of integration? So that's actually one of the words. But yeah, I it's so interesting to me, like astrology and all of these things are Lost Octave. There's all the maths in there, all of these bits. I've done everything in there so that really people can just relax on the on those parts, because most people go into it like, oh, I've got this gate, and this degrees and this deacon, and that's beautiful. That's how we start, right? But when you really go into the Lost Octave, in a way, all of that is kind of thrown out, because that's why I say that the book is actually a book of love.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
it's not really. Astrology was just you could say, the way in which it allows you to enter. So it's the invitation, like, oh, I want to learn about my star stories and this is it. But really, when you get into the real heart of the book, because it's obviously it's the transmission of Venus,
Mhm.
that there are many beautiful love stories in the book that really people haven't either got to yet, or they haven't spoken about yet. But there's some really ancient love stories, like Tristan and Isolde is one of the ancient stories, a very Arthurian type mystery. And there's all different stories, from the Arthurian to the Vedic stories to the ancient Greek stories of Psyche and Eros. That's all in there as well. And again, it's narrated in a way that is kind of for our time, and it's really extracted the essence from that story. And so Tristan and Isolde, it's this beautiful sort of kind of, it's a tragic love story. So it's a bit like a Shakespearean one, but it's about that first love. It's like you fall in love and you don't even realize you've fallen in love. You meet someone, and it's, Tristan, basically, he goes to Ireland, and he meets Isolde, and he basically he falls in love with her, but he doesn't really realize that, because he's looking for a wife for his uncle. And so he's like, wow, this girl's amazing. So he looks for his uncle for this new wife, and they go back on this boat. And whilst they're on this boat, they're like, wow, let's share a drink together and celebrate. And, the story is quite deep, but essentially the bottle that they pick up is a love potion, right? So it's a wine that's been, enchanted with love potion. And of course, they both drink the wine, they share the wine, and then they actually come together on the ship before they reach his uncle's, the king. And so there's this sort of sense of like, we can't be together because you're now promised to the king. We've done something that we shouldn't have done. But it's like, well, what is the love potion?
Mhm.
Really, the love potion is the honoring of that. Sometimes you can't help but fall in love with the people that you love. There's no reason for it. You're not meant to. You're not meant to connect with that person, but somehow it's there. You're two kindred spirits,
Mhm.
and so they have to sort of separate, and they even try and run away together, and then he gets banished.
Mhm.
And so there's this sense that he's dying, and he knows, this is later down the line, he's dying, and he knows that the only person that can save him is his beloved. And so he calls for his beloved, and they send a ship, and she comes, and his current wife, because they're now separated, his current wife that he's with, he says to her, if the ship has a white flag on it, tell me that means she's coming. If it's a black flag, tell me that means she's not coming. So the wife, being jealous, again, this is a very interesting story. When the wife, being jealous, sees it's a white flag, but tells him that it's a black flag, because she knows the magnetism of what they have. It's something so special. Even though he loves his wife, like what they had, Isolde and him, is so special that it transcends time. And so she knows it's so powerful that it would instantly heal him.
Mhm.
But instead, when she tells him that it's a black flag, he instantly dies. And of course, then Isolde comes and she sees him, and she's like distraught, because she's like, well, my beloved's dead. Even though she's married to the king and she's got all the kingdom, it doesn't matter. This one being is where her heart is. And so in seeing that he's died, she instantly dies of heartbreak herself. Now, this is like, wow, so tragic, a very Romeo and Juliet.
Mhm.
But then what the beautiful thing is, even the king of the whole kingdom could see this magnetism and love that they had. And so he basically takes their cremation ashes, and he actually puts them into the ground together. And what happens is that two trees actually grow up in that space and they intertwine. And so forever they're together in on the earth and in the stars. And it's like just such an amazing story. And that's about the Gemini, about the Gemini twins, right? That it doesn't mean that you have to be identical twins. It's the acknowledgement that a part of you lives inside another person. That God seed, the namaste that lives within you lives, within another. And so it's the recognition of the beloved with the beloved. So it's consciousness falling in love with consciousness. And that will be always together on the earth and in the heavens, no matter our lives, what we do on this life, and who we are with. And, your connection to the beloved, to God, to source, it can never leave you. Even in death, you then go into the eternal timeless realm. And so just reading that story, and that's a in Cornwall in England, they have that. And if you go to the King Arthurian Tintagel there, they have this courtyard with Tristan and Isolde, and it's a real ancient myth, but it teaches you such a deep essence and an understanding what Gemini is about. And so this is really the heart of what Venus is sharing in that book, and these are the real cherished parts of the book that I really encourage people to, it's beyond signs, it's beyond the zodiac, it's beyond, even the sort of the star law. It's actually about really coming to the heart of love. And so that's the beauty and the teaching that Venus wanted to share. And that's why it's the Lost Octave, because we need these stories for humanity to reread, to really travel through this. And if one person can even go through that story and really grasp the heart of that, then that's a huge shift for our collective consciousness. So that's my invitation.
I've got tears in my eyes just hearing you retelling that story. It's just so beautiful, and it's making me think about, you mentioned the God seed, and often when I go into meditation, I go into like my sacred peril, and it's the sacred bridal chamber of the Holy Cosmic Mother and the Holy Cosmic Father in divine union. And it just, hearing that story is reminding me of how important love is, love in everything. And I just can't thank you enough, Rob, for these incredible wisdom teachings, generous sharings. You're the most humble person who's carrying all this amazing activations for us all in order for us to search within ourselves. And I really want to encourage everybody, even if you don't understand all of this, because I don't, and that's the journey that we're all on. It's to come home to mastering ourselves and getting to the deeper truths of who we are as eternal souls. And I would really encourage you all to buy this book and to follow Rob's work. I know that I do, with so much love and respect for what you're doing, the courage to take this work and just share it with the world. It's so beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on, Rob, for everything you are and everything that you do.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. Such a great conversation to go into these deeper parts. And, it's, yeah, I feel like that's why, when it came through, I knew this was a book for everyone. It doesn't matter. And although it looks kind of daunting at the size and everything else, it's page by page. It's actually very simple how it just takes you so easily into the step by steps. And before you know it, you're just in the journey. And so, it's like a few strokes of the oar, a little bit of effort just to read a paragraph or a sentence a day. That's all I say to people. Just flick to any page in the book. You can use it like an oracle and just hold an intention. What do I need to know for today? Whatever it is, open the book. That's all you need to do, because from there, it's worlds within worlds. And, the heart of Venus is really, as I say, so every word has been placed there for a reason, because I couldn't write it in any other way. That was how it was coming through, that it had to be in this way so that you could really experientially know this, directly experience this for yourself. And it's such a gift to yourself. And then of course then that the other part of Venus is about relationships. So by you doing this, by you enjoying this journey and going through this, all of the relationships that you have change, and then you start to help those people see other things in other ways as well. And so I think if we can start to do this collectively, that's why I say the Lost Octave is a movement, because if we start to be that, be the essence of that teaching, be the love of these stories,
Mhm.
then it's just going to flood into other people, and then other people, and then before we know it, communities of people are all at a certain frequency. That's how we're going to help shift this planet and take away from the absolute craziness which is out there right now. And that's the thing that we can do. We have the power to do that in our lives now, and we can do it. It's here, it's all there for you. And as I say, it's a beautiful invitation, and I love to hear about people's journeys and stories through it. So you can always connect with me in the community, share your experiences, ask your questions, and I'm here to really support people through this. And I've got some courses that I'm doing at the moment that are going to assist people as we move through this en masse. And it's exciting times, as we really are in that Aquarian age energy, and it's about time we're taking some quantum leaps forward.
It really is. And I'm so, so grateful that you're leading the way with that, alongside those of us that are ready. Um, Rob, thank you so very much. I'm going to drop your links down below this podcast episode so people can easily buy your book. It's available on Amazon. You also have courses coming up as well, so people can find you easily, connect with you. I'm loving being part of your Facebook group as well, because there's lots of beautiful connections there too. And it's so lovely to see that everybody's getting what they need to get from this wisdom as well. So I hope to have you back on again sometime. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time.
Thank you so much. It's been so great to be here with you, and yeah, I've really enjoyed this. It's been so lovely to connect with you. So thanks so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Rob.